There are so many people out there smashing goals, living their best life. That's why I'm particularly excited to put the spotlight on this creator. Now, she's killing it. She's a sculpture and blend shape artist working with companies who have been a part of some crazy productions. We're talking Game of Thrones, Call of Duty, Little Mermaid. Need I say more? Thank you, Steph Creek, for coming through and joining me on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to be here.
Now, I'm really curious because you've always had a flair for animation, VFX, but you never saw yourself doing animation for film. How did you end up getting there? Like, was there a particular event that made it happen?
I feel like it was a series of like acceptance where, where I was always a creative person, but I kept trying to go into science and stuff like that.
Really?
Yeah. So at one point, I wanted to be a forensic scientist, and all my electives in school were all science-based subjects. And then in my final year, I switched everything to arts because I realized that's where my passion lied, and it's what I decided I wanted to do. And then I wanted to get work in that kind of area. And I'd always been very like into films and movie making and all that kind of stuff. So I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna go do that. Even though I had no idea. No idea.
It's so funny you say that because that's actually very similar to me. I was constantly, similarly, I wanted to be a forensic psychologist. So similar vein. And I remember doing science subjects, math subjects, and then towards the end of my schooling, I was like, you know what? I have to let the inner creative child come out and go into the arts as well. So that's fascinating. And I'm curious because, you've worked with companies who, as I mentioned earlier on, massive productions. I'm a massive Game of Thrones fan. And of course, Little Mermaid, all of that, amazing stuff. Are you a part of that? Are you a part of any exciting projects coming up that you can share potentially?
I can kind of share. So I in London at the moment, I'm working on Transformers, Rise of. So it's going to be like the next film in the franchise kind of thing. I think it's
cool.
It is exciting to get to be part of such a big franchise.
Is it a lot of pressure?
Yes.
Yes. It must be so fast paced as well, I imagine.
It depends. Sometimes it's quite slow, but it goes very quickly. And the pressure is definitely intense when you're working on really big IPs. But I think the people that you work with as well just make it so much easier to deal with that kind of pressure and everything because you're all in it together.
Yeah. It's a team feeling, which is a bit easier as opposed to doing it solo for sure. And was there a lot of training that you had to do to get into animation? Or did you learn yourself? What was kind of the process around that?
It's definitely a bit mixed. I mean, before I came to Collarts, I did an advanced diploma in animation and visual effects for film. But I still, even at the end of those 2 years, had no idea what I was doing. And it wasn't until I started going to industry events and seeing other female artists in the industry doing what I wanted to do that I was kind of like, okay, I need to like start taking this more seriously and applying myself in the areas that I haven't been.
Yeah.
And so once I came to Collarts and everything, I had kind of set out like a new pathway for myself, and I was doing like extra courses on the side.
Yeah.
I was doing like 3 courses at once and still working as well. So it was definitely a bit of a balance, but I think if you want it bad enough, you're going to put in the hard work to get
The
there.
hustle is real. I'm exhausted just listening to that. That's amazing. Good on you. And not only that, you literally took the leap and you went to go live and work in the UK. How was that process? Was it like super scary? What kind of made you want to do it?
I think the pandemic definitely played a big part in that.
Yeah.
I've always worked overseas. It's definitely been something that I've always had a goal of because the visual effects industry, you can always travel around.
Yeah.
So that's really big bonus of working in this kind of creative field. But yeah, the pandemic came along and I just got a bit sick of living in Melbourne. And I got this opportunity to come to London. And I was just like, wow, if I'm going to get paid, I might as well go.
I mean, why not? I say this so confidently, but I would be the last person who does that. So I'm so amazed by it because I can't even travel solo. I get scared. So to live and work in a whole new country, that's incredible. Good on you.
It was kind of a bit of an adjustment. But yeah, I do love it here. It's so like lovely and it's very like hustle and bustle. And like London is a big VFX. So it's exciting to be around like so many other creatives.
I love that. And talking about animation, if you could choose anything, what would be the dream gig?
I mean, I feel like I'm kind of already living my dream gig.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think the thing about this industry is that your path is never linear.
Yeah.
Constantly changing, and with each new experience, you get other opportunities that open up, which maybe you never would have thought about before.
Yeah.
So things are constantly changing, but I do think a goal that I have in mind for my future self is to get to a point where I could work on set at some
On like a
yeah.
film set?
Yeah, so sometimes within our jobs, we get to go onto the film set and kind of navigate how things should be done for, say, example, like the actors. Maybe we need to discuss with them some shots and that kind of thing for a digi-double, which is basically a digital replacement for in movies. But I'd really love to be a part of that process a bit more in depth because at the moment I kind of already do that. Even just get a chance to see it in person, even if I'm not really like a part of it, that would always be like a very exciting thing.
That would be so cool. And I have no doubt that, you're going to achieve it. I'm sure you will. And imagine being on the set of Transformers. That would be insanity. So, so dope. Now, where can people find you?
People can find me, oh gosh, I have a LinkedIn, which is basically Stephanie Creek, my full name. But I also have like an Instagram, which is where I post more of my art stuff. So that's Steffi Creek. And basically I just post like all my art stuff and that and memes and
Memes are life.
Social media is such a great way to connect with other people. And I've been so fortunate to use it in a way where I've gotten to connect and get like really amazing opportunities. So from like my Instagram, I connected with someone that works at Adobe and then they got me like, managed to get me a gig there, like a freelance opportunity. So yeah, you never know like who you're gonna meet, and I always encourage people to post their art online as well.
100%. That's such good advice, and I couldn't agree more. If you love doing something, you're passionate about it, you should always share it. And social media is a great tool for that, absolutely. Thank you so much, Steph, for coming through. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Anytime, anytime.